Hello and welcome to ChatCraft English. I'm Sophie. And today I want you to imagine something for a moment. What if learning English didn't feel difficult, boring, or stressful? What if instead it felt natural, exciting, and even a little bit fun? Like you were simply living your life, but in English, that's exactly what we're going to do together in this lesson. So stay with me until the end, because by the time we finish, you'll not only understand new expressions and ideas, you'll also know how to use them naturally in your own daily conversations. And here's the best part. You don't need to memorize long lists of words or grammar rules. You just need to listen, repeat, and let your brain pick up the rhythm of English step by step. Are you ready? Let's dive right in and start practicing together. When you learn English, it's very easy to get caught up in the little details. Maybe you say the wrong verb tense in the middle of a conversation. Maybe you forget a word, or you pronounce something slightly differently from a native speaker. And in that moment, it feels huge. You might think, oh no, I messed up. I'm terrible at English. I'll never sound fluent. But the truth is, these small mistakes do not matter as much as you think. What really matters is the bigger picture, your overall ability to communicate, to express your thoughts, and to grow step by step. Think about it this way. Imagine you are painting a very large picture, a beautiful landscape. If you look too closely, you might see a tiny brush stroke that doesn't look perfect. But when you step back and look at the entire painting, that little detail is almost invisible. Learning English is exactly the same. If you focus only on each small error, you'll feel frustrated. But if you step back and look at your progress as a whole, you'll see that you're building something amazing. I know many learners who spend hours worrying about whether their grammar is 100% correct every single time. But here's the reality. Even native speakers make small grammar mistakes. They mix up words, they forget phrases, they pause to find the right expressions. Does that mean they aren't fluent? Of course not. Fluency is not about perfection. It's about connection. It's about being able to share your ideas and understand others. Let me give you an example. A student once told me that she was afraid to speak because she didn't know whether to say, I have eaten or I ate. She thought if she chose the wrong one, people would think she didn't know English. But when she finally spoke, people understood her perfectly. The conversation continued, and no one even noticed the grammar choice. The small problem that she was so worried about didn't stop communication at all. This is why you need to train your brain to think about the overall situation, not the small problems. If you hesitate every time you worry about a mistake, you will lose your flow. But if you keep speaking, if you focus on the big picture, sharing your story, asking your question, explaining your idea, you will sound much more confident. Here's a helpful strategy. Instead of asking yourself, did I make a mistake? Ask yourself, did I communicate my message? That simple shift changes everything. Because at the end of the day, English is not a test. It's a tool. You use it to connect with people, to work, to study, to travel, to build relationships. And none of those things require you to be perfect. They only require you to be clear. Let's imagine two learners. The first one is always focused on small problems. Every time he speaks, he thinks, was that the right tense? Did I pronounce that word correctly? Should I have said it differently? Because of this, he speaks very slowly. He hesitates, and he often stays quiet because he's afraid of mistakes. The second learner thinks about the bigger picture. She knows she will make mistakes, but she speaks anyway. She keeps her focus on sharing ideas. Even if her grammar isn't perfect, people enjoy talking with her because she communicates with energy and confidence. Which learner do you think improves faster? Always the second one. You see, fluency grows from practice, and practice requires action. If you only sit in silence trying to be perfect, you will never give yourself enough practice to grow. But if you accept that mistakes are natural and focus on your overall progress, you will move forward much faster. Another way to think about this is to compare English learning to driving a car. Imagine if every time you drove, you worried about whether your hands were exactly in the right place on the steering wheel, or if your blinkers were turned on at the perfect second. You would feel stressed, and driving would be very slow. But in reality, most drivers make small errors all the time, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that they arrive at their destination safely. The same is true for English. Small mistakes are like little bumps on the road. What matters is that you arrive at your goal, being able to express yourself and understand others. Of course, I'm not saying grammar or pronunciation aren't important. They are. But they are tools to help you, not obstacles to stop you. When you learn them in the context of the bigger picture, they become much easier to master. But if you only stare at your mistakes, you'll lose sight of why you're learning English in the first place. So I want you to ask yourself, why are you learning English? Is it to pass a test, to get a better job, to travel with confidence, to meet new people? Whatever your reason, keep that vision in your mind. That vision is the big picture. And when you focus on that, every small mistake becomes just part of the journey. Remember, language is alive. It's not a list of rules. It's a way of connecting with human beings. So next time you speak and you notice a mistake, smile and keep going. Don't let a single detail block your progress. Instead, celebrate the fact that you are speaking, that you are using English as a real tool, and that you are moving forward step by step. When we talk about thinking in English, one of the most powerful tools is visualization. This means creating a picture in your mind and describing it in English, even if you are alone. For example, if you are walking in a park, you can imagine describing what you see. The trees are tall and green. A child is running with a ball. The sky is clear, and I can feel the warm sun. By doing this, you train your brain to connect English words with real experiences, instead of just translating from your native language. Another useful method is self-talk. Many people feel strange talking to themselves, but it is actually one of the fastest ways to improve fluency. You don't need anyone else to practice with you, can simply narrate what you are doing. For instance, when you are cooking, you might say, I am cutting the vegetables. I am boiling water. I am adding salt. It may sound simple, but this habit builds automatic thinking in English. The more you describe your daily actions, the more natural your English will become. Now let's think about mindset. Many learners believe they must speak perfect English before they can have conversations. But this idea creates fear and hesitation. Instead, focus on progress, not perfection. Mistakes are not failures. They are steps toward fluency. Every mistake shows that you are practicing learning and improving. If you wait for perfect grammar, you may never start speaking. But if you accept small mistakes and keep going, your fluency will grow faster. I want you to imagine this situation. You meet a foreign friend, and they ask you a simple question in English such as, "How was your day?" instead of worrying about grammar rules. Just answer naturally, even if it's not perfect. You can say, "My day was good. I went to work, I met my friend, and I watched a movie." That is enough. With practice, your sentences will become longer and more complex. But the first step is to speak without fear. Listening is another key element. If you only study grammar and vocabulary, your brain won't get used to the natural rhythm of English. That is why podcasts, audiobooks, and even English songs are so valuable. When you listen daily, your ears start to recognize patterns. For example, you begin to notice how native speakers connect words, gonna instead of going to, or wanna instead of want to. At first, these may sound strange, but soon your brain will automatically understand them. This helps you respond faster in conversations. To make listening more active, don't just play English audio in the background. Try shadowing, which means repeating after the speaker as closely as possible. You don't need to copy perfectly, but the goal is to train your mouth and ears at the same time. If the speaker says, "I'm going to the store," repeat immediately, "I'm going to the store." Shadowing feels difficult at first, but with practice, it sharpens your pronunciation and builds fluency. Reading is also a powerful way to expand your English, but you need to read in the right way. Many learners try to read advanced books too early and they feel frustrated. Instead, choose materials that match your level. Short stories, news articles, or even social media posts can be perfect. When you read, don't try to understand every word. Focus on the main idea. If you meet a new word many times, your brain will learn it naturally. For example, if you see the word schedule in 3 different articles, you will soon remember it without using a dictionary. Speaking, listening, reading, and writing all connect together. But the most important point is consistency. Practicing a little every day is much more effective than studying for many hours once a week. Think of English like exercising a muscle. If you train regularly, the muscle grows stronger. But if you stop for a long time, it becomes weak again. That's why daily practice, even just 10 minutes, creates long-term improvement. Finally, remember that English is not just about words and grammar. It is also about culture and emotion. When you watch a movie, notice how the characters express feelings: anger, joy, surprise, or sadness. Try to copy not only their words, but also their tone. If someone says, "That's amazing," with excitement practice, saying it with the same energy. This will help you sound more natural and confident when you speak. Sometimes when we face a challenge, we focus too much on small details. We think about one mistake, one problem, or one negative comment, and suddenly we feel stuck. But if we learn to look at the bigger picture, we can see that one mistake is just a small part of a much larger journey. For example, imagine you are learning English and you make a mistake while speaking. Maybe you forget a word, or you use the wrong tense. At that moment, it feels terrible. You might even think, "I'll never be good at English." But if you zoom out and see the bigger picture, you realize that this one mistake is just a tiny piece of your learning process. In fact, making mistakes is proof that you are trying, and every mistake brings you closer to success. Thinking about the bigger picture is not always easy. Our brains are naturally attracted to problems. We notice when something goes wrong, but we often ignore all the things that are going right. That's why we must train our minds to step back, breathe, and see the whole situation. Let me give you another example. Suppose you are preparing for an English exam. You studied hard, but during the test, you couldn't answer one question. After the test, your mind keeps thinking only about that one question. You feel nervous and disappointed. But if you step back and think about the overall situation, you see that you answered many other questions well. One question cannot destroy your progress. This kind of thinking is not just for exams or language learning. It's useful in life too. Maybe at work you face a problem with a project. If you think only about that problem, it feels heavy and stressful. But if you zoom out, you might see that your career is full of many achievements, and this project is just one of many. It's not the end. It's only one step. Focusing on the bigger picture also helps us stay motivated. If we only pay attention to today's small problems, we feel tired quickly. But if we think about why we are learning or where we want to be in the future, we find energy to keep going. For example, you are not just learning English words today. You are building the ability to travel to work internationally or to connect with people all over the world. That's the bigger picture. Here's a small exercise you can try the next time you feel upset or stressed about something. Stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. Then ask yourself, will this problem still matter in 1 month, in 1 year, or in 5 years? Most of the time, the answer is no. By asking this question, you remind yourself that small problems are temporary, but your goals and dreams are much bigger. Another way to practice this skill is journaling. At the end of the day, write down one small problem you faced. Then next to it, write why it doesn't matter in the bigger picture. For example, I mispronounced a word in English today. But in the bigger picture, I am improving every day, and one mistake does not stop my progress. This simple habit can change the way you think. When you focus on the bigger picture, you also become kinder to yourself. You stop judging yourself harshly for every mistake. Instead, you celebrate your progress, your effort, and your courage. And that creates confidence, which makes learning even easier. So remember, small problems are not the end of the world. They are part of the journey. If you think about the bigger picture, you will stay calm, motivated, and confident in your learning and in your life. Now let's focus on the idea of staying positive even when things don't go as planned. When you learn English, you will make mistakes. You might forget words, use the wrong tense, or pronounce something incorrectly. But mistakes are not failures. They are simply signs that you are learning, practicing, and improving. In fact, if you are not making mistakes, it probably means you are not challenging yourself enough. Think about children. When they learn their first language, they make hundreds of mistakes every day. They repeat words incorrectly, they mix grammar, and sometimes what they say makes no sense. But parents don't stop them. They encourage them, correct them gently, and give them more chances to try again. You should treat yourself the same way. Be kind, be patient, and remind yourself that mistakes are natural steps forward. Another useful strategy is to set clear, realistic goals. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English, which is too big and can feel overwhelming, try smaller goals. For example, this week I will learn 5 new phrases for ordering food at a restaurant. Or today, I will practice speaking for 10 minutes without stopping. These small goals are easier to achieve, and each one gives you a feeling of success. When you feel successful, you want to continue. It's also important to celebrate progress. Many learners only focus on what they cannot do yet, but they forget to notice what they can already do. Maybe 6 months ago, you couldn't understand a podcast, but now you understand 50% of it. That's progress. Maybe last year you couldn't introduce yourself confidently, but now you can. That's success. By celebrating these moments, you build motivation and confidence. Now let's talk about practice in daily life. Many learners believe that practice only means studying grammar or reading books. But real practice is much wider than that. You can practice English in small, natural ways every day. For example, when you are cooking, try saying the steps in English. I am cutting the onion. I am boiling water. I am adding salt. This trains your brain to think in English about ordinary actions. When you are walking outside, try describing what you see. The sky is blue today. There are many cars on the road. A child is playing with a ball. These simple sentences may seem small, but they are powerful. They create habits. The more your brain connects everyday life with English, the faster you improve. Another strong habit is shadowing. This means listening to something in English and repeating it at the same time like an echo. You can shadow podcasts, YouTube videos, or even songs. This method helps you improve pronunciation rhythm and listening skills at once. It's like training your mouth and ears to move together in English. But remember, consistency is the most important thing. Practicing for 10 minutes every day is much better than practicing for 2 hours only once a week. Daily practice keeps your mind connected to English, and your progress becomes steady and natural. Now, let's look at the emotional side of learning. Many learners feel nervous when they speak, especially with native speakers. They worry about being judged, or they think their English is not good enough. But here's the truth. Most people do not care about your mistakes. In fact, many people admire you for trying. Imagine if a foreign friend tried to speak your language. Would you laugh at them? Probably not. You would encourage them, help them, and respect them for making the effort. That's how people usually see you too. One way to reduce nervousness is to focus on communication, not perfection. Your goal is not to speak perfect English. Your goal is to share your ideas and connect with people. Even if you use simple words or imperfect grammar, as long as the other person understands you, you have succeeded. Over time, your accuracy will improve naturally. Another helpful idea is to practice speaking alone before speaking with others. For example, you can stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself in English. Or you can record your voice and listen to it later. At first, this might feel strange, but it's very effective. You become more comfortable hearing your own voice in English, and you can notice areas to improve. To make speaking practice even more powerful, you can combine it with visualization. Before an important conversation, imagine yourself speaking calmly and confidently. Picture the situation clearly in your mind, where you are, who you are talking to, and how you feel. This mental rehearsal prepares your brain and makes the real moment easier. Finally, remember that learning English is not just about language, it's also about identity. Every time you practice, you are not only learning words and grammar, you are building a new version of yourself. The version who can connect with more people, explore more opportunities, and experience more of the world. Sometimes when we're too focused on the small details, we forget about the bigger picture. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are learning English and you make a mistake while speaking. Maybe you forget a word or use the wrong grammar. You feel embarrassed and think, oh no, my English is bad. But if you look at the overall situation, you realize something different. You are already communicating in another language. You are making progress. You are expressing yourself. The small mistakes don't matter as much as the fact that you are learning and improving. This is why it is so important to train your mind to zoom out. When you zoom out, you see more clearly. You don't only notice the small problems. You notice the growth, the opportunities, and the progress. In life, the ability to step back and see the bigger picture can change how you feel. It can reduce stress, it can give you confidence, and it can help you stay motivated. Now let's connect this to daily practice. Every time you face a challenge, ask yourself, is this a small problem or is this part of something bigger? For example, if you are late once to a meeting, does it mean you are unprofessional? No. If you forget a word in English, does it mean you are bad at English? No. These are small issues. What matters is the pattern. What matters is the overall journey. You see, the mind often tricks us. It focuses on small negative things and makes them feel bigger than they are. This is why many people give up too early. They think one mistake means total failure. But it's not true. A mistake is just a part of the process. The bigger picture is about progress, not perfection. Think about successful people. Do you think they never made mistakes? Of course they did. The difference is they didn't allow small problems to stop them. They kept their eyes on the overall goal. They stayed focused on the journey. And that is exactly what you can do too. Here's a simple exercise for you. Next time you feel frustrated, write down the situation. Then ask yourself, if I look at the bigger picture, does this problem really matter? You will often find that it doesn't. You will see that the progress you are making is far more important. And remember this. When you change the way you look at problems, the problems themselves begin to change. Instead of feeling heavy, they feel lighter. Instead of blocking you, they teach you. And instead of slowing you down, they can actually push you forward. The truth is, life is not about avoiding mistakes. Life is about learning from them, growing from them, and continuing to move forward. The same is true with English. Every word you say, every conversation you have is part of your bigger journey. So the next time you feel stuck, step back. Take a deep breath. Look at the bigger picture. Remind yourself, I am growing. I am improving. I am on the right path. When you think this way, small problems lose their power. And this mindset is not just useful for English or learning. It applies to every part of life. Work, relationships, goals, health, everything. The bigger picture gives you strength. It gives you perspective. It helps you continue even when things are not perfect. So today, make this decision: stop letting small problems control your emotions. Focus on the bigger picture. See yourself as a learner, as someone growing, improving, and moving forward. With this way of thinking, you will not only improve your English, but also your confidence and your life.